Hey, what's up guys? So we're here to go over everything in Diablo for all the questions that you guys might be having for this game. But let's go ahead and do some of these rapid fire style, and then we're going to go ahead and go in depth and go into a lot of the gameplay mechanics here. So as far as the game goes, if you guys are interested in perhaps signing up for the newsletter and or beta or alpha, they did make a section on their website where there is a sign up section. That's more than likely where they're going to be sending out that information, because you do have to log in with your Battle.net. So I'll leave all the information also in a pinned comment for the link if you guys do want to go ahead and sign up for potentially a beta and or alpha and the newsletter for Diablo 4. And then the next thing that a lot of you guys might be having as far as a question goes, what is the max level in the game? Nothing is set in stone right now, but currently the max level is set to 40. However, they do plan to release expansions, and as that goes on, they will increase the level cap. And on top of that, what is the maximum party size? The maximum party size is currently set to 4. However, they do have these world events, which are going to essentially increase the gameplay that you will be having with multiple people, but essentially the core party size is 4, but there are going to be events where it will require multiple parties. And also want to mention, just as a heads up, all of the gameplay as well as the data is taken from BlizzCon 2019 from these content creators. We've gathered screenshots, as well as basically we're going to be doing these rapid fire styles. So instead of having the full entire interview, I will link all of their full videos down below from Quin 69, Bluddshed, as well as Rhykker. They did an interview with the devs as well as gameplay here from Bluddshed, but I did want to give them just a quick little shout out there, because they were the content creators that did happen to go over there, and that's where I'm getting all of my information from. And I will also have timestamps on every single thing that I do mention, because there is a lot to go ahead and go over, and I wanted to make this a little bit faster. So the information is provided, again, from those content creators, but also we're getting information from Joe Shelley, which is the lead game designer, and he actually talked to Quin. And then the lead system designer, David Kim, talked to Rhykker. And so that's where we're getting all of our information. But go ahead and guys and follow them, and I'll link the full VODs that they actually have down below also, so you guys can go ahead and check them out, because we're technically using Bloodshed's gameplay here for some background. So anyways, let's go ahead and hop right into it. So the most important thing that I think a lot of you guys wanted to know are runes and rune words, and I'm going to go ahead and actually explain how it kind of works in the game. So you have these two different runes in the game, and I'll go more in depth and explain how a rune word technically works in a Diablo 4 as of right now. So you have two different types of runes. You have ones that will affect, and then one that will essentially proc how the rune actually works. And here's the inventory system, just in case any of you guys did want to see how the inventory system actually works. As far as itemization, we do not currently have belts or shoulders in the game as of right now. And if they do need them, they do say that they do have plans to add more items if that needs to be available in the future. As far as charms go, there was nothing mentioned as far as charms, but here's what the inventory system does look like. And then next up, here's what the map looks like. We don't have access to everything, but I just wanted to go ahead and just flash it on real quick so you guys can go ahead and see that. Now, as far as male or female characters, this was something that I think a lot of people did wonder. When you go ahead and select your class, there is another option to select between a few different options. Here's what we see for the sorceress. This is probably a work in progress, because currently right now for the barbarian, you can see that there is male and female, and there's multiple options for male and or female. Potentially with MTX, which is something I will get into, we could potentially see a little bit more with this, but again, it's in the earlier stages. So going on to how runes work in this game. So you have two different runes. You have an effect rune, and then you also have the condition rune. So let's look at the very first picture of the Dole effect rune. It says, when active, gain 50% critical strike chance for 7 seconds. And then over here we have the condition rune. It says, when using a healing potion, activate the next socketed rune. So this is like the advanced gameplay mechanic, and how rune words work in the game is you have an effect and a condition rune, and these can actually be swapped in and out. So I'm not sure if there's going to be any type of penalty for removing them, or if you can even remove them if they are permanent once you put them in, but that's essentially how rune words work currently in the game. There's a condition and an effect, and you have to have both of them, otherwise it will not apply any effect. I know in Diablo 2 rune words, they would have an effect if you had the correct rune word, but they'd also just give you something if you just put in the rune, but they will not do anything unless they have the condition and the effect both met over here. Another thing I did want to mention is Smart Loot looks like it is coming back. There was a few people that did get legendaries that would have things that were not for their class. Like, for example, this is a legendary item called the Ring of Frozen Thought, and it says that your physical attacks chill enemies who are chilled through chilled enough times become frozen. And so you also see that it says there is a 6% reduced fury cost for skills, and that's Barbarian only. So some of these will be kind of for specific classes, but it does not lock a specific skill for a class, and that's something that I think is actually pretty cool that I'll go ahead and get into later. Now, as far as how many classes will be in the game, so at launch, they plan to have 5 classes. Currently, the only classes that we know of are going to be the Mage and or Wizard, and then we have the Druid and the Barbarian. Those are the 3 classes that we have that are going to be for sure. Now, the reason why I showed off this picture over here, this is a picture of the weapon artwork, and we can definitely see some Druid stuff right there. But then also we see a what looks like to be some type of a phylactery, when you see with the little red eye over there, and then we also have a ranged weapon that makes me want to say maybe Demon Hunter, maybe some type of an Amazon weapon, but it could just be placeholders, because keep in mind they don't have everything set in stone in this game yet. But you guys can comment down below if you guys want to go ahead and speculate what other classes you guys think will be at launch. My honest guess is going to be Necromancer and Demon Hunter, especially since they decided to reveal this picture. And again, that's what it looks like, again, with that little, like, red eye. And then there's also that, like, bird, I want to say it is, that little purple thing. It kind of looks like a bird over there. But next up, here is a overview of like the map. If you zoom out, we can't see everything. Basically, everything's blocked out except for that small demo section, but that's what we currently see right now. And then let me go and actually explain some of the skills as well as the talents in the game. So how it works is skills are permanent in this game. However, you can play the game and acquire tomes that will just grant you a ability to get another skill. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to max out every skill, because if you're able to go ahead and put skill points in, you guys can see the numbers in green as well as yellow. Those integers can be basically modified with other items in the game, as well as potentially, because you don't have the option to put in skill points, I can't say this for sure, but I want to say that those integers are the integers that can change, if that makes any sense. So again, we don't really have too much information as far as that goes in terms of how many skill points can be allocated into one specific skill. But I do also plan to make a video going over every single skill that we currently know of from the BlizzCon demo. But keep in mind, there's no gameplay of every single skill in the game as of right now. But what you put in is technically permanent. And if you guys are new here and you do want to see a video going over all of the skills, I do plan to make one. So hit subscribe, turn on that bell, and you'll definitely see it when I go ahead and actually get all of that work done. And then the last thing that I want to explain here is the talent system. So the talents can be swapped in and out for free. You can go ahead and respec at any time, but you can see basically what they do. Most of them are going to be integer changes, like it'll just give you flat movement speed or damage reduction, or when you use X skill, you'll have a chance to bleed or do something when you use a certain skill, or it'll have like a modifier where you can actually inflict bleed chance. You know, there's a lot of other modifiers. Again, I want to make specific videos going over each class that we know of as of right now, so don't worry, I'll go more in depth on that. But just as a little like quick thing, talents are going to be things that you can swap in and out. Now, let's go ahead and hop into a bunch of the questions that were asked, again, from all of the basic interviews from Quin as well as Rhykker. They do plan to do another basic Q&A, and I will be updating you guys on that if there's any newer information on this. So first off, the question about Paragons. As far as that goes, what they said about Paragon, they said that they want something that feels meaningful if you hop in and play for anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. They want to be able to make it feel that you have a sense of progression. And again, I will be giving you guys sources on every single one of these things that I'm talking about in the pinned comment, because there's so many timestamps with all of these. So we're going to be doing these really fast, because I thought about editing all of the clips, but honestly sometimes they ramble on for like 5 minutes and this video would end up being over an hour. But anyways, next up, Endgame Content. So they said they do want variety. They said that there's going to be a key dungeon system, and how it works is once you reach max level, you can acquire these key dungeons. They have ranks, and they also have map modifiers and affixes. So those will actually be able to scale as well, and to me it sounds like it's basically a greater rift system, but there's a lot more that they have changed. So similar to PoE map mods or Mythic Plus in WoW, basically they want to have map modifiers that explain that, like, one of them would essentially be that, like, there's a lightning thing that follows you and it just does damage to you if you're not fast enough. So there's going to be map modifiers maybe for bosses and other things, but they said nothing is set in stone, but that's basically what it comes down to. If you play Path of Exile and you know what a map modifier is, basically think of that. And then the next thing that they talked about is itemization and legendaries. So how legendary works in this game, and they specifically mentioned this one, they would have like a legendary that reduces the cooldown on X skill. So let's say teleport, for example, because that's the one they use. And then they would also have another legendary that would say, for example, every single time that you teleport, a Nova happens. So that's their whole plan for it. And they also do plan to make it so legendaries are going to be equal or better than set items, because that was a question that Quin brought up, which was basically, we're just going to go ahead and slam, 6-piece gear slot for a set, and then we have like 1 or 2 changes. And he said that they do want to make it so legendaries are viable. As far as yellows being viable in the game, that was addressed in another post, but basically what it comes down to is they'll think about it. I really hope that they consider that, because that makes it so people aren't looking for a very specific legendary. But I'm also curious to know how you guys feel about that, because I like that idea of not requiring a very specific legendary just for stats. The next thing that was asked as a question, which was Transmog Sets, is that possible? And they just said, we're considering it. I'm guessing that's because they kind of want to do something with MTX, which is something I'll get into later. Someone asked about a solo self-found mode, SSF, like you would have in Path of Exile. They said it's not a mode that they have planned to go ahead and set. They do also plan to have hardcore for those of you guys that are interested in hardcore, but you can technically play solo self-found if you want to, but then David can mention that there are some world events that are going to be way too hard anyways, so I'm not sure if that's going to be a viable means of playing. They definitely seem to want to incorporate team play in this with these world events, so I'm not sure if that's going to be available. As far as offline, there was no mention of that, so I don't think it's going to be coming, although, again, that's something that they haven't spoke about, and I'm guessing that that's probably not going to exist. They also talked briefly about the leaderboard for, like, let's say keystones, which is like the new type of like greater rifts essentially. The leaderboard is not so useful for everyone, so they're still trying to figure things out, and they want to focus more on seasonal conquests. So I'm not sure if it's going to be like the first person that completes it in a certain time frame, but basically there wasn't that many people that would essentially really utilize the leaderboard, so they want to make it more, I guess, friendly for everyone. Okay, next thing up that is pretty important is trading. So they said that there's no auction house. They're exploring 3 options of item types. So the first item type is tradable at all times, including materials, which is interesting. There might be some materials that are not tradable, because that is essentially what Endgame is going to be about, is basically modifying some of these newer things called Mythic items, which I'll get into and briefly mention in a moment. But there's going to be items that will be tradable at all times. There's going to be items that trade once, then they are completely bound. And there's going to be items that are bind on equip or bind on pickup. So they can never be traded. And as far as that Mythic item goes, they didn't show it off, but there's going to be a new like rarity of items called Mythic, and you can only have one of them, and they have 4 different special abilities on them, and essentially what the endgame is trying to be is trying to re-roll those specific ones to get to where you want all 4 of them, if that makes any sense. So it's going to be a lot of RNG with those Mythic items, but those are going to be something completely new. They did briefly mention that they thought the cube was cool and they want to have some more crafting in the game, but they didn't show any of that off. There was no gameplay of that. No mention of Kunai's cube either. Again, early on, a lot of the questions, as far as the answers go, they were just saying, "Oh, we're looking at it. We're still early on in development." In fact, as far as the game release, they said not even Blizzard soon, so this could be quite some time before we were actually going to be able to get this game. But as far as seasons go, they said yes, they do plan to have seasons, and what they want to do with seasons is modifying the best items so the meta does shift. So that is going to be pretty cool if they go ahead and swap things up quite fast. In terms of the business model of the game, they do plan to have the game as you need to purchase the game. And then on top of that, we will also have expansions for this game. And then they also said they're thinking about MTX, specifically Stash Space and other like conveniences, but there's no pay to win. That was mentioned in Rhyker's video. Again, I'll have all the sources for these with the timestamps. So they did specifically mention that, yeah, you can get respec on your talents, but not your skills. But you will also be able to acquire tomes, so you can theoretically, what it sounds like is you're going to be able to get all the skills anyways. But as far as how many points you can put into them, I don't know. But yeah, as far as monetization, this was actually, I wrote this down twice because there was two different people that did speak about this. One just basically kind of said, we're not 100% sure about what we're doing with MTX. The other one said that there is going to be cosmetics. So again, I think that that's going to be something that people shouldn't really be too upset about. But there's going to be no pay to win. You cannot pay for power. That was specifically something that David did mention. But yeah, you're going to have to... there's going to be a base game, then expansions, and that will also increase the level cap. And then someone mentioned something, I believe this was on Quin's interview, they said something about modifying the UI and DPS meters. And as far as modifying certain things, they said we can modify the keybinds and elective mode will be available, because in the demo, you will see that there is no option to go ahead and swap out some of the skills, and basically a force move button. I'm hoping that they also technically add that into the game in the future, because that was something that was mentioned. And then Quin also asked about botch and cheating applications, or like things that would give you an advantage like Turbo HUD, and it basically says that, yeah, we take it very seriously, to sum it up over here. All right, so going into PvP, this is something that David Kim was talking about. So as far as PvP goes in Diablo 4, they want to have specific PvP areas, and there's also going to be PvP modes. And then as far as esports, there's no mention of it yet, but he said, you know, players are crazy. We don't know what's going to happen with the game. So I'm not sure if they're going to plan that for later. I think it really comes down to the interest in this game before they decide to go ahead and make it like esports. But I think it would be interesting to see some type of structured PvP in the game. So again, classes at launch, 5. Okay, I already mentioned that. No pay to win. Max level, again, 40. Party size win over that. And then pretty much that was most of the stuff covered in the interviews. But next up, yeah, we already mentioned that hardcore is indeed a mode. And then on top of that, someone mentioned that there was supposed to be like a 100-player event for those world bosses. Another thing I do want to mention, that mounts are in the game, but they are super underdeveloped right now, so there's no gameplay. Well, technically there is that, like on the official Diablo gameplay video, they do show them on the mount, but there is no mount gameplay. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention. Okay, so I mentioned before that the belts and the shoulders were removed, but bracers have also been removed as an item. And you can also do like a little roll. You'll probably see it in Bloodshed's gameplay that we're showing off over here. You can infinitely dodge. Like, it has a short, like, I guess I want to say like a cooldown, if you will, in between each one. But you can basically keep on spamming it. It won't make you immune forever, but basically there's no limit to how many times that you can dodge, and it's on every single character. And it's almost kind of like if you've played console on Diablo, when you use the right analog stick, I believe, you do a little like roll, and that's going to be available for everyone. Another thing is it's a non-linear story, so you guys can go ahead and just do things at your own will. Probably you saw in the gameplay some like quest markers. But another thing I do want to mention as far as the loot goes, there is cooldown and resource cost reduction in the game. As far as potion goes, as of right now in the BlizzCon showcase, there was only one type of potion, which has a 13-second cooldown, but there is other items in the same area that the potion is at, so there might be a lot more potions potentially, because in that slot there is like a bunch of other things. Another thing is the potions aren't just like one, where in Diablo 3 they eventually just made it so the potion was one and you just spam it. So another thing to mention, shrines are still in the game, and loot goblins do exist. I'm not sure if we'll see any in the gameplay. Honestly, I was kind of just reading a bunch of my notes over here, but there is loot goblins in the game. And as far as the leveling system, they said it's going to be much slower than Diablo 3. The next thing is, as far as crossplay goes, they would like to, is basically what it comes down to. And then they also mentioned non-classes can use other class skills on proc modifiers. So there's an item, you can see one legendary over here that makes lightning traps, but there's another legendary item that makes Hydras come out, and Hydra is a skill on another class, and you can still kind of use it, if that makes sense, because it has a proc modifier. But there's no confirmation like in Diablo 2 how we had like Beast, where you can go ahead and use like the ability to turn into a bear as like another character. And then on top of that, what is the currency in the game? So as far as the currency goes, gold does exist in the game, and Geed is back, so you guys can go ahead and RNG those items, kind of like Kadala with the blood shards. You have Geed. Geed is indeed back. Things that were not shown in the demo, there's no vendors in the demo, you cannot zoom in, there is no player housing or hideouts in the game. Other things that I thought were interesting that I wanted to just mention, Barbarian can actually hold 4 different weapons. You have 2 one-handed weapons, and then you have like a giant sword as well as like a giant hammer. But anyways, guys, that's it for all of the notes. Like I said, give these guys a follow, because I basically got all their data and compiled it into one simple video. But if you guys do want to go ahead and read up and watch their full VODs, I definitely recommend it. There's a lot of content to be kind of consumed here with all the new Diablo stuff. But anyways, hopefully that video helped you guys out, understand a bunch of the things, and answered a bunch of the questions that you guys have had. If there are any other things that you guys felt like I missed out on, or if there's any other things that you guys have questions about, let me know, because I've literally been sitting there watching every single person's VOD and going over basically the questions that people probably have had. But anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good one, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like on it, because this video took a lot of work, honestly, going through everyone's gameplays and trying to get, again, some of those questions answered. Hit subscribe, turn on that bell, and I'll be updating you guys, because tomorrow there's also going to be another Diablo. They're going to have like another Q&A, so hopefully some of these other things will be answered that you guys might have. But anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys, and like I said, I'll pin it down below, and you guys can go ahead and check out, again, all the sources on everything. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good one. I'm signing out. Peace.